All right. Could you state your name?
Yeah, name is William Nordella.
William Nordella. And your age?
What?
Age?
91.
You're 91.
Yeah,
Oh, God
just
bless.
turned 91.
Just turned 91?
Yeah.
When was that?
August.
In August?
12th.
August
Yeah.
12th. 91 years old. Well, what state were you born?
New York State, Long Island City.
Long Island City?
Yeah.
Is that part of Queens?
Yeah, I think it's part of Queens.
Okay. Well, what street did you guys live in?
I don't remember the name of the street, but what happened was my mother owned the house on that street, and she had to sell it to the city because they were making the entrance to the Queens Midtown Tunnel right through the neighborhood. And our side of the street they had to demolish to make the entrance. And that's how we ended up moving out of Queens. My mother ended up renting in Astoria. She didn't like renting. After a year, she bought a house in Jackson Heights. That's where I spent most of my adult life before I went into the service. I was 21. I started at 18, and I stayed in the service until I was about 21. The war was over. I got discharged when I was in Japan, and we came home. Then I went back to college, but that's when I ended up in Pratt Institute. Well, at that time I was going into chemical engineering because I knew I liked chemistry, but I didn't know whether I liked chemical engineering better. So I decided to go to Pratt, and they only gave engineering degrees. So I went to Pratt for chemical engineering, and after 2 years I decided chemistry was better, and I switched and went to Queens College. Queens College was right up the road from where we were in Flushing. And I got a little tired when I went to Pratt going back and forth with using the subway.
Right.
I figured, let me go someplace where I can go home for lunch. And that's how I ended up at Queens College. I graduated from there.
So at this point, you graduated now. Finally, you got your degree.
1950.
In 1950. And what was your first job?
My first job was at Sperry Gyroscope out in Long Island. Sperry Gyroscope. I was there for 14 and a half years. It was all kind of government work. I worked in a chemical lab where we did a lot of analysis on steels and other fluids, did a lot of measurements on different things that they were using for tanks and other government stuff.
The PDI is centered.
After 14 and a half years, Sperry was starting to lay off people, and they got to me after 14 and a half years. So I couldn't find a job on the island. I ended up working with PerkinElmer.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
how you ended up in PerkinElmer.
Yeah.
Now, what type of work did they do in PerkinElmer?
Well, when I first got there, it was a classified
10,
job.
9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13.
It was top secret until 2012. We were working on making a spy satellite. Now I can talk about it because it's cleared now. But in those days you couldn't talk about it. Nobody knew what I was working on. I used to tell my son-in-law, if I tell you what I'm doing, I have to kill you.
And you weren't kidding.
And I
So,
wasn't kidding.
so now in 2012, they basically opened the books up. You could talk about it. So
yeah,
could
it's
you?
called Hexagon now. It's a big spy satellite that we did in the 70s.
In 1966, the Hexagon program had reached the formal competition stage, and both the CIA and the Air Force established program offices. The contractor team finally selected consisted of the PerkinElmer Corporation, which would develop the prime sensor or dual camera payloads,
Now this was in the heart of the Cold War.
Yeah. Yeah, this is how most of the information the government got about what was going on in different countries through the photographic images that the spy satellite gave them.
Wow.
We did this for almost 20 years. Well, not 20 years, 18, something like that. We made 20 of them. 19 flew successfully. We had one failure.
One failure.
Just one failure in 20.
In 20. And basically these satellites that you were working, that you were a part of, ended up going up and getting images for the government.
Right. Yep. The most interesting part was each unit contained 3 canisters with the film, and every time the canister got loaded, it would eject, and then they ejected into space, and when it came down near Earth, they had an aircraft hook onto the parachute with the film and bring it down to Earth to get it developed. That was interesting. I didn't know how they were going to get the film down back to anybody.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any words of wisdom?
No, the only thing I ever lived by was, if you have a wish to do something and you don't know if it's going to work, don't forget about it and do something else because of the money and because of security. Give it a shot. You never know if you're going to like anything or not. That's what happened with me in chemical engineering. I didn't know whether I'd like chemical engineering. I knew I'd like chemistry. But if I stuck with chemistry, and I always have the doubt, would I have made a good chemical engineer? So I didn't like chemical engineering. A side note, my grandson is a chemical engineer. He liked chemical engineering.
And he likes it.
Yeah.
So something rubbed off.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a chemical engineer, all right. He works in New York City now. Upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Yeah, upstate New York.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.